Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products Season number 11. Tonight here for round number 10 of the season. It's honestly kind of hard to believe that we're already so far into things here tonight, but sure enough, coming into tonight's event, Brian Sabelski is still holding on to the championship lead here at a nice, comfortable 200 points. Simon McRae, the driver, going to be the driver just behind him with 185 points, coming into tonight's event. But speaking of the driver leading the championship, it's going to be Mr. Brian Sabelski starting out on the pole of this one for Maconi Setup Shop. Starting his outside in the number 93, that's going to be Mr. League Administrator Jason Gardner in the ASRC SM Racing Products entry. Starting back in position number 3, that's going to be TJ Henson rolling it off in third in the race cars number 62. And starting on her outside, that's going to be the Justin Wilson Memorial entry. That is the 14 of Nico Morelli, rounding out row number 2. Back in position number 5, it's going to be one half of the SM Racing Products team. That's going to be the number 15 of Garrett Streets. Starting back in position number 6, that is going to be the Advanced Auto Parts number 2 of Patrick Dixon, rolling it off in position number 6. And rounding out this 7-car field, that is going to be the 24CZ Robotics entry of Corey Logan here this evening. 7 cars making the call to the grid here tonight. 100 laps is going to be the distance, as is usual here in the ASRC Oval Series. And I'll tell you what, between last week's event where we had a couple of post-race disqualifications and tonight's event with Tyler McRae not able to be in attendance of the race, this is really shaking up our championship standings here tonight, and this could have some serious implications on how the end of the season rolls out in these next couple of weeks. Because these drop weeks are starting to get burned through, and McRae really needs to pick some points back up to catch up to Sabelski, and not being here tonight is going to make that very difficult for that Dropping Bombs racing driver. But right now, Sabelski has a rare opportunity to have a little bit of breathing room. Of course, the driver starting his outside in the number 93 is the driver 3rd place in the championship standings. Jason Gardner is very much not out of this fight. That said, though, iRacing.com has pulled into the safety of pit lane. We are getting this thing rolling 100 laps here at the Thompson Speedway. Off to an amazing start by Brian Sabelski going down into turn number 1, but they're 2 by 2 just behind him. TJ Henson way down on the low line here, battling it out with Nico Morelli. Oh, almost contact between the two of them. Big checkup behind that 62 of TJ Henson. And just like that, we find ourselves with a little bit of a gap between your top 3 drivers and the rest of the field. Call it about half of a second. Garrett Streets is right behind TJ Henson in that number 15 machine. Both of them gonna drift a little bit high. Patrick Dixon's gonna try and send it on in low. Not quite able to make it stick though. Thompson Speedway, dare I say, a little bit of the weirder tracks on the schedule, because the preferred racing line here at Thompson is, car off the track. That's the 24 of Corey Logan. Looks like they just went around. No caution flag going to come out, as they still got pointed in the right direction. Take a quick look back here. It looks like coming out of turn 2, got a little bit loose, locked up the front tires. No harm, no foul, but that is not going to do those tires good in the long run. Now it's a matter of making that 6-second deficit back up on the rest of the field for the driver of the 24 machine. But look here as the field goes down into turns 1 and 2, particularly our race leader of Brian Sabelski there. Thompson Speedway is a little bit of an awkward one here on the iRacing.com platform because it's not like your traditional short tracks where you want to lock down the low line as hard as possible. And it's not a track like the Irwindale Speedway where you want to be running the wall at all times. Here at Thompson Speedway, the preferred line is effectively right down the middle of the racetrack, and that makes it a little bit awkward to try and make passes for positions here. TJ Henson scraping against the outside wall. That's going to cost her a couple of spots, though. Garrett Streets gets around her without too much difficulty. She's going to send it way down low and try and get that spot back here. I pulls alongside of him coming out the corner. And she is going to have the advantage going down into turns 3 and 4, but Streets is on the preferred line here. It's going to be really hard for Henson to make the pass here, and sure enough, Streets is going to clear her going down the front stretch. Leaves some room going down into 1 and 2, but Henson just not able to make that ground up. But just like that, Henson down 2 positions from where she qualified, just from a little bit of a slip up there, going through turns 3 and 4, and we potentially have a battle up here at the front. Look for a second there, like Gardner was trying to make a pass for position in that number 93, not quite able to make anything work here. Nico Morelli's right behind him, though. Morelli's going to start thinking about making a pass here as well. And despite that, last time by, fastest driver on the speedway is actually going to be the number 15 of Garrett Streets here, the driver out of Topeka, Kansas. Last time by, fastest lap of the race with a 20.17. That is only well, actually a little bit closer to 3/10 off of our qualifying pole time with a 2014 that Brian Sabelski set. So the drivers up at the front of the field, not necessarily the fastest drivers on the speedway right now. But for the most part, single file all around the speedway. Don't want to try anything too particularly daring here, especially at a track as tricky as this one. It is just as easy to wreck yourself as it is to make a successful overtake here. You really either got to pressure your opponents into making a mistake, or just be patient and try to catch them when something goes wrong. But it's really difficult to force the issue here at the speedway. But it's still very much on the table. Our top 3 drivers are the closest drivers on track, about 0.2 of a second between each of them. And I say that, and Morelli falls back a little bit. But then that's bizarre. Gardner had a really weird bobble coming out of turn number 2. I'm not quite sure what happened to him there. It almost looked like something messed up with his steering coming out of corner exit. It looks like he's rolling fine now, but just like that, Sabelski has had half a second of breathing room to work with. Let's see how they shake up crossing the line last time by. Sabelski was the fastest car on track, so Gardner has still lost ground from that little slip up, whatever that was. Looks like it is having some lasting effects under the hood of that number 93 machine, because Nico Morelli is hot on his tail, and he's not really catching up to Sabelski at all. Definitely bizarre indeed. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like our folks in the camera truck have a replay available of that to get a better view of what just went down there. That was really unnatural. A little bit further back in the field, TJ Henson and Garrett Streets battling it out once again. Had that little bit of a slip up earlier on in the 62. Now she's trying to make some of that ground back, because right now she's the only driver on the speedway that has lost positions from where she qualified. She had almost completely closed the gap on Garrett Streets there, but it looks like she has fallen back just a bit here. Call it about half a second between these two drivers. Last time by Henson, a 25.4. Garrett Street's a 23.6, which is faster than what our race leaders were setting, so Henson definitely has her work cut out for her right now as the leaders begin to bring it back together here. Gardner looks like he has recovered from that little bit of a slip up, and Morelli is here as well. I'll tell you what, Morelli been having a bit of a quiet season so far here for season number 11, but I'll tell you what, tonight could be his breakout race. Currently 9th in the championship standings coming into the night, so that right behind Patrick Dixon, who currently has 72 points. Mr. Morelli coming in here, 69 points, back in the 9th position. So unfortunately, not quite in a place where he could walk away with the championship. But a win is a win, and tonight he has some speed under the hood of that 14. He has the potential to make something work here tonight. And honestly, one of the big what ifs is going to come down to pit strategy, because all these drivers are going to need to make a stop here tonight. Thompson Speedway coming in at 1 kilometer in length, or 0.62 miles, so not quite the longest track on the schedule, but it's up there as one of the bigger ones. And fuel saving, I don't think is going to be an option for these drivers. If we had more cautions, maybe they could make it work, but in a green flag only run, I don't think it's going to be possible. As we take a top-down view of the track, it is a little interesting to see that these drivers, some of them are starting to elect to take a little bit of a higher line through the corners than we've seen earlier on in this race. Originally, you pretty much wanted your left side tires on that contact patch, that slightly darker section of asphalt through the corners, but here, at this rate, the drivers are pretty much completely ignoring it, sometimes going down a little bit towards it on corner exit, but for the most part, they're trying to get higher up the speedway here. Not quite into the marbles, but you can see how they're going up really high up in the corner. If any of these drivers overdrive the corner at all on accident, that is going to put them straight into the no traction zone, because marbles got their name for a reason. You do not want to be getting your tires in them. You will lose all of your grip, and if you're not lucky, end up with your nose into the outside retaining wall. So far though, everyone has managed to keep their late models pretty clean here this evening. We had that little bit of a tire lockup from Corey Logan earlier on in the race, and then a slight little scrape against the wall for TJ Henson back around lap 10, but she managed to get away without really any damage on the side of that late model stock car. But as it stands right now, the entire field is getting pretty spread out here, except for your top three. They're all under a blanket here. Morelli falling back just a little bit in that 14 machine, but mostly able to keep pace. Let's see how our lap times look coming across the line. Last time by Jason Gardner is the fastest of the bunch with a 20.39. Actually, we can change the scoring here. Take a look at these drivers' lap times as they cross the line here last time by. Do an update this time. Sabelski is going to be the fastest driver of the bunch here. So very similar on speed pretty much for these late model drivers. A little bit of variance, but all within fractions of a second of each other. Only 33 laps in the books here. Going to be definitely interesting to see how these pit cycles shake things up, because we have seen a lot of very fast drivers here in the ASRC Oval Series make their mistakes on their pit stop. So we have seen plenty of black flags pointed out for unsafe pit entry, unsafe pit exit, pit lane speeding violations. And several times we've also had drivers make mistakes on their fuel calculations and have to make a second stop. It's been all sorts of silliness down on pit lane for most of these drivers here this season. And in these final couple races, there's only 2 races left after tonight's event. These drivers really need to nail their remaining stops if they want to get things sorted out this season. That said, next week, round 11 is going to be held at the Oxford Plains Speedway. Oxford Plains Speedway is a track where these drivers should not have to make a stop because it is such a tiny little speedway. So as long as everything goes smoothly for drivers there and they don't get any damage, there should not be any pit strategy to have to be worried about at the Oxford Plains Speedway. And then after that, our championship is going to be hosted at Five Flags Speedway. And that one is going to be one where pit strategy is definitely going to be a big factor, because that's going to be one of our half-mile tracks where you could theoretically save if you played your cards right, but it's going to be really difficult to pull it off. And I think there, where there's not going to just be a guaranteed pit stop, is where we're going to see a lot of the drama happen down on pit lane. Right now though, Jason Gardner right behind Brian Sabelski, call it about 0.2 of a second separating these two drivers. Gardner has been hot on his heels all race. I'm honestly curious if he's going to try and make the pass before pit cycles begin, or if he is just going to be content to hang behind Sabelski here. Of course, if he wants to pick up the bonus point for most laps led this race, he does only have 10 laps left to get around that number 85. But that is only a single bonus point, so if he doesn't get it, it's not catastrophic, but every single one of these points counts here in the ASRC Oval Series. And this late in the championship, you really need to be scrambling to grab every point that you can get, but as long as Sabelski holds on to the lead of this thing for 9 more laps, he's guaranteed to pick up that bonus point for most laps led here this evening. Gardner is closing the gap even further there, darn near straight up nose to tail with that 85 at some points. But Thompson is just a speedway where it's so difficult to make a pass. I wouldn't be surprised if we do end up seeing Gardner have to play the patient game here and hang on to second position throughout the remainder of this battle. Speaking of battles though, Nico Morelli having a little bit of slip up. Garrett Streets now finds himself up inside the top 3. A little bit of an issue for Morelli going down 1 and 2 last time. Still hasn't put it in the right direction, still has it rolling, but had a little bit of a scrape against the wall. That's going to cost him some speed big time here. Now Streets is sailing away from him, almost half a second between the two drivers already. Further up in the field though, Sabelski and Gardner are 2 race leaders finding lap traffic. That's going to be 24 of Corey Logan pulling on down low to the apron for him. And now both of them are coming up on the Advanced Auto Parts number 2 of Patrick Dixon, just like that as well. Both these drivers are going to be ending up going a lap down unless Dixon can get saved by an incredibly lucky caution in the next probably lap or so. Dixon also going to pull it down low in that number 2, let our race leaders by. Blue flags are not off track for Patrick Dixon. Down in the grass a little bit there for that number 2 as he let the race leaders by. The apron may be a little bit more slippery than he was anticipating it to be. Another little bit of a bump down in turns 1 and 2. So Dixon and Logan, both these drivers are battling for position, which is for the lucky dog position here. Of course, if a caution flag were to come out, this spot would be all the marbles for these two drivers. And TJ Henson coming up the middle of this battle here as well. she's going to clear these 2 lap cars, and now they're back to battling just like that. Corey Logan has picked up the spot over Patrick Dixon. Last time by, Corey Logan was just a little bit faster than that number 2 machine. So for right now, Corey Logan able to sit comfortably in the lucky dog position in that CZ Robotics number 24. Corey unfortunately only able to come out here part-time this season. Used to be a full-time regular back in the early goings of the ASRC Oval Series. Great to see them back out here on track though, currently running back in the 6th position. And just hoping for a caution, because if that yellow flag flies, they will be the driver put back on the lead lap. The driver who's really hoping for a caution not to come out though, that's the 14 of Nico Morelli, going to be the first driver making the call to come down the pit lane here tonight in that Justin Wilson Memorial number 14. He will be taking tires as well as fuel here tonight. Is the call going to be 2 or 4? That's the big question. 2 tires going to be the call for Nico Morelli. TJ Henson going to be the next driver down pit lane though. What is the call going to be for that race car's number 62? Driving in the paint scheme of the Real Life Cars Tour driver Bobby McCarty. And sure enough, the call is going to be 2 tires for TJ Henson as well. That is going to put both of these drivers back on the speedway a lap down here, as Sabelski and Gardner and Streets all still electing to stay out. Sabelski has led every lap of this race, and we have crossed the halfway point. So no matter how the remainder of this race ends, Sabelski is going to be picking up the bonus points for leading the most laps of the race. Now Jason gets hit by a little bit of a different strategy call. Does he go and try and shortcut Sabelski on pit lane, or does he wait for Sabelski to pit so that he can pick up the bonus point for having at least 1 lap led guaranteed? He is currently sitting about 30 points out of Tyler McRae right now, and of course 30 points is the amount of points you get for a race win here in the ASRC Oval Series. So all of those points matter here in this championship, but it's going to be a strategy call of, does he feel confident in a strategy that can take him home with the checkered flag, or does he want to play for the bonus points here and maybe do a little bit of an off strategy? Right now, though, they are the 2 drivers left on the speedway, and Gardner is going to make the call down the pit lane. Sabelski is going to stay out and try and stretch the fuel tank all the way to the end. Let's see what the strategy call is for Mr. Gardner in that SM Racing ASRC number 93. I would imagine it's going to be a 2-tire call. It's what we've seen out of every other driver on the speedway. At this rate, if you don't pit under caution, you just can't afford the time loss to take 4 tires here. 2 tires going to be the call for Gardner. He's back out on the speedway. Sabelski comes back down. He is the last driver that needed to pit. The question is, will he be able to get through his pit stop fight fast enough not to, or to hang on to the lead still? Looks like the answer is going to be yes, he does. He comes out just in front of the leaders. Not quite able to get up to speed though, so Gardner has to go way high through the corner, side by side, coming out of 4. Jason Gardner is your new race leader. His tires are already up to temp. Sabelski is still going to need a lap or 2 to get that car race ready. Pulls up high, tries to at least hold off Garrett Streets. And he is able to do so, but now he has to go on to the offensive. He has played defense for the last 60 laps. Suddenly, he's not in as comfortable of a position as he was before anymore. And ironically, last time by, the driver that's going to be setting the new fastest lap of the race is actually going to be Nico Morelli, all the way back in 4th in the number 14 machine. with a 20.11. I don't know if that speed's going to be enough to get him back up to the front of the field, especially as we cross the line here. And now the new fastest lap is going to go to Brian Sabelski with a 20.04, which is faster than the lap times we saw in qualifying here. Using a hot racetrack already has the rubber down with some brand new tires, just allowing them to get that little bit faster here on the track. Side by side, back in the back, TJ Henson's battling it out with Nico Morelli. And mind you, just a couple laps ago, Nico Morelli set the new fastest lap of the race before our race leader took it back. So both these drivers have a whole lot of speed to work with here. And only about 35 laps left to go to make it count. Morelli last time by 0.3 of a second slower than Henson though, so going to be difficult to make that spot back, especially with how difficult it is to pass here at Thompson in general. Currently looking back at the battle for the 4th position, both these drivers 4 seconds back from our race leaders here. 2/3 of the way through the race though, 33 laps left to go. And things not looking super great for Nico Morelli or TJ Henson right now to potentially catch up to our race leaders. And speaking of drivers trying to catch up to our race leaders, Jason Gardner looks like he is starting to pull away from Sabelski just a bit. Last time by actually identical lap times between these two late model drivers, so not quite pulling away from Sabelski as much as we thought. Very even speeds between the two of them. We actually pull up the onboard of Brian Sabelski real quick here. We can get sort of an idea of what it's like for these drivers down here on the speedway if we can find Sabelski's onboard camera real quick. Riding on board with Brian Sabelski back in position number 2 here. Trying his best to get up to Jason Gardner. Of course, don't need to be changing gears here really. Keeping it in 4th, dropping down to about 80. At the slowest point in the corner. But you can see how these drivers are running pretty much right in the middle of the speedway, so that's supposed to go a little bit lower than Gardner there. Not quite able to make any of that ground up though. Both these drivers setting some incredibly fast lap times though, and up ahead of them about half a speedway up the track. You can see that lap car, the 24 of Corey Logan. So that could potentially shake things up here depending on how well these two drivers are able to negotiate lap traffic. But as we cross the line onto lap 73, we are in the closing chapters of tonight's event. It's getting ready to get into do or die territory. Ryan Sabelski 3 wins to his name so far this season. Tyler McRae with 5. And Andrew Ibester took home the win last week after our race leader was disqualified. So that will give Ibester a race win to his name. We're looking here at the record book at the Thompson Speedway. Jason Gardner won here back in season number 3. That would have been back in the street stock. Then Sabelski won here in season 7 and season 8. Both of those were in the old Chevrolet Monte-Carlo SS late model stock from the olden days of iRacing, so to speak. So both of our drivers here in the top 2, they have wins at the Thompson Speedway. Neither of them have wins in this particular car. Now 25 laps left to go. It's still anyone's game here, but Gardner is showing a whole lot of speed here this evening. It's going to be hard to get around that number 93 with how evenly set these two drivers are. Sabelski really has his work cut out for him to make this happen here tonight. Crossing the line last time by, Sabelski was a little bit faster than Gardner, but still neck and neck in terms of lap time. Looks like they're both getting hit by the tire fall off pretty much at the same rate. Both drivers setting lap times about 2/10 slower than their personal best when they put those new slicks on, which is pretty much what you expect to see here at a short track event. These tires don't last super duper long. Last time by, though, identical lap times between Gardner and Sabelski. Despite that, Sabelski is closing the gap here out of turns 1 and 2. Sabelski is close enough that we could see potentially a little bit of a bump here to make that door open. Gardner really is just trying to hang on here. Last time by 2/10 of a second faster before Sabelski over Gardner. Gardner might be getting a little bit nervous here, a little bit. And he's not really making any mistakes here. And that time by, once again, equal lap times between the two drivers. So Sabelski can close the gap nearly instantaneously if Gardner makes any sort of mistake. The issue is that Gardner just does not make mistakes all that much. 19 laps left to go here. And last time by, now Gardner's 2/10 of a second faster than Sabelski. They really are, both drivers, nearly identical to each other in terms of lap time, but that just goes to show even the slightest, tiniest little bit of a slip up can be so costly in terms of lap time here. These drivers really can just not afford to make any more mistakes in these final couple of laps here tonight. Throughout the rest of the field, everyone else fairly spread out. Garrett Street's riding decently comfortably back in the third position in that SM Racing number 15. TJ Henson rolling back in fourth, almost 4 seconds behind Streets. Then Morelli has another 3-second gap back to TJ Henson. Corey Logan and Patrick Dixon both multiple laps down here, so both of them will require multiple cautions to get waved back on to the lead lap. But of course, you can't count that out. It is entirely possible that it will happen. With how things have gone so far this race, I would not hold my breath for that. There is the number 2, the Advanced Auto Parts entry of Patrick Dixon right in front of our race leaders, though. Lap traffic, always pretty good about getting out of the way of the race leaders, but that isn't guaranteed to not make things a little bit more shaky here. Gardner and Sabelski both catching up to that number 2. He pulls it on down to the apron, lets them both by. They are free to battle. They have a clear speedway ahead of them. Pretty much for about, I want to say 3/4 of the racetrack now. Should be pretty much completely empty for them now. 13 laps left to go here. Plenty of clean air and wide open racing surface for these two drivers to duke it out. All they have left to worry about now is to hope that nobody behind them manages to bring out the caution. That's where things could all fall apart for these two drivers, is if that yellow flag flies, the whole field gets bunched back up. And then they have to play the big fun old guessing game of, do they have the tires to hold off the cars behind them if the cars behind them close up that gap, get an opportunity to be nose to tail with them again. Because Gardner and Sabelski, they both have very clearly been pushing these cars with everything they've got in these last 50 laps or so. These tires are not going to really do them any favors if we end up having to go into an overtime situation here. Right now, though, last time by, Gardner still about 1/10 of a second faster than Sabelski. Double high fives are up in the air, though, from our flagman. 10 laps left to go here around the Thompson Speedway. 10 laps to settle the score. 9 actually as we cross the line here. The clock is ticking for Mr. Sabelski. If he wants to get this done, he needs to get it done now, basically. There's not really going to be any opportunity left to make this happen. The rest of the field, everyone is so spread out that unless somebody makes a major mistake, either just straight up wrecks into the wall or spins out, they're pretty much guaranteed to finish where they're running. Last time by, actually, everyone outside of our top two set lap times nearly identical to each other. Streets with a 27.2, Henson with a 27.1, Logan with a 27.1, Morelli with a 27.1. So it all really comes down here to Gardner and Sabelski, and Gardner is pulling away. He has the room to work with. Patrick Dixon will be pulling it on down the pit lane here. Dixon might be retiring for the evening. Currently was being scored 6 laps down when he made that pit stop, but he should be good on fuel. He was down in his pit box for almost 2 minutes in the pit last time around, and that's why he was 6 laps down. So we could see mechanical issues for Patrick Dixon, or he could be calling it an evening here with 5 laps left to go. It's all down to Gardner and Sabelski around this .62 mile speedway. Sabelski's really got to make some ground up in these last couple of laps. 0.6 of a second. That might just be too much of a deficit for the driver of the number 85. We might just see Jason Gardner take home a win in season number 11. He wasn't quite able to get it done on his birthday a couple weeks ago, but we might just see him make it happen here tonight. 2 laps left to go. The gap between himself and Sabelski is now up to 0.8 of a second. As long as the caution flag does not fly in these final 2 corners, Jason Gardner's looking like he is going to be stringing this late model on home with a victory. White flag up in the air, 0.6 of a mile left for Jason Gardner here for round number 10 of the ASRC Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Jason Gardner is going to be the driver who gets it done here at the Thompson Speedway. Gardner's going to get it on done. We were talking about that gamble. Does he want to try and overtake Sabelski before the pit cycle begins and pick up the bonus point for most laps led, or do you want to try and shortcut Sabelski on pit lane and try and take home a race win? Well, race win is going to be the option that Gardner goes with. And coming into tonight, 3rd in the championship standings, that might just be enough to bump him up over Tyler McRae and contend with Sabelski for the championship in these final couple of races. Little bit of a Polish victory lap out of the driver of that number 93 machine. Thanking all the fans that came out to tonight's event to pick up his first win of the season, and now tying Brian Sabelski for the most wins here at the Thompson Speedway. That said, though, don't go anywhere, race fans. We will be back here in just a moment with some words with your top 3 finishers here this evening. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Thompson Speedway for round number 10 of the ASRC Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. And speaking of SM Racing Products, we got our driver that rounded out the podium here tonight. Hasn't been out in a couple of weeks, and now you'll walk away with a podium finish. How are you feeling here this evening, Mr. Streets?
It feels pretty good. I wasn't expecting much out of tonight. Thompson's not one of my best tracks, but I wanted to come out. Been busy the last, I don't know, month or so, maybe longer, and had an opportunity to make it this evening, and wanted to join everybody. So yeah, ran pretty well. Pretty happy with myself. Didn't have any kind of speed to compete with Brian or Jason, but just tried to keep it consistent. Wore some paint off the right hand side of the car, but hey, you'll have that sometimes.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of short track racing for you. It would be a shocker if anyone left this track without a little bit of paint missing. But he managed to make it happen here after a couple of weeks out of the speedway. You reckon if anything went different here tonight, you might have had something to give to Sabelski or Gardner tonight?
I don't think so. I think the only opportunity I would have had is maybe if I pit a little earlier, I would have been in front of them on the cycle. But they were too fast. They both got around me, and they were deserving to finish 1-2 for sure.
Fair enough. Well, next week, gonna be heading over to maybe a little bit of a controversial track. We're heading on over to Oxford Plains Speedway. You think that's a track where you might be able to make something happen?
We'll find out. It's been a long time since I've been there. Most of the time when I go there, I end up over the embankment down in the dirt on the outside. So our goal will be to keep it on the pavement. It's a pavement race, not a dirt race. So yeah, we'll just try to keep it within the confines of the banking and see what happens.
Well, that sounds like a reasonable enough plan for me. For now, though, I'll let you get some practice in for next week's event. The microphone's all yours, Mr. Streets. Who you want to thank for making this happen here tonight?
I want to thank you, Aiden, for broadcasting. Thank Jason for putting everything on and letting SM Racing Products sponsor it. Want to shout out to Morgan and shout out to Jeremy. I try to get him here, but he's a workaholic. I think he's eating tacos on the couch as we speak, just enjoying the race. But yeah, just thank you, everyone, for coming out and supporting the league.
Good deal. Well, congrats on the podium, and we hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Aiden. We'll see you later.
And finishing back in position number 2, the Makoni setup driver of Mr. Makoni setup shop driver, excuse me, of Mr. Brian Sabelski. And you had the first half of this race in the bag, but not quite able to put the second half together here tonight. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done? Uh-oh. We might be having a little bit of technical problems here. Hold on.
Oh, sorry. No, I hit the
there we
wrong button. Yeah, a little disappointed. I think I should have won that one pretty easily. I felt like I had the faster car all around. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I just overdrove on that last stint and burned more of my tire off or what, but Jason just kind of squirreled away from me in the last 10 laps or so, and that was it. I mean, he made the right call, big tip of the hat to him for pitting what he did. That was definitely the right decision. And I kind of expected that was going to happen. So I knew either I had to figure out when he was pitting and try and undercut him, or go in the same time or something like that. And I think he just went in one lap earlier than I thought he would. So yeah, I let that one get away from me. That's just my own fault for whatever reason, whether it was slow pit stop, bad pit strategy. When I came out, we were side by side, and I don't know, I could have run him up the track, I guess, if I wanted to, if I really felt like it. But I didn't feel like being dirty like that. That's not cool, especially when he's got a big run coming off the corner like that. And Garrett was behind him too. I didn't want to accidentally hook myself on Garrett and take us both out. So sometimes that's what happens, I guess, when you try to play a little bit safe, is you end up throwing away a win. But yeah, should have won that. Definitely should have won that, especially with the way I was running all night.
Yeah, you definitely had a very fast late model here this evening. And still a second place finish will keep you up at the front of the championship coming out of tonight's event. And next week, heading on over to the Oxford Plains Speedway, you still got some opportunities to pick up some more wins. You think that's a track where you'll do it?
Maybe. Track Murder's right side tires and Murder's right front, so it's gonna be a little bit of tire saving there. Can you go fast without just constantly turning left? That is going to be the question. I think next week, as far as Oxford goes, and that's number 8, part 1. Part 2 is somebody going to launch themselves over the light pole. It'll be very interesting to see that. I like Oxford. It's a track I've run well at the past, but yeah, hopefully we can put on a good show there. I know, even though I didn't win, still got a bunch of points tonight, and that's everything's all just padding the old points total, and I really need to do that because I'm gonna have 4 drop weeks I'm gonna have to worry about. So here's hoping. I just want to make sure I go into that last race with as much of a lead as possible.
That seems like a pretty solid strategy to me. But for now, though, I'll let you start getting ready for next week's race at Oxford Plains. The microphone's all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who you want to thank for making it happen?
Big old thanks, of course, Makoni Setup Shop, official setup shop of eNASCAR. Great bunch of people over there. Glad to be on the team with them. Of course, SM Racing. Thanks for both hosting the series, but sponsoring the series and for the button box. I love the button box that they've got. It's great. Definitely check it out if you haven't yet. Also, thanks, of course, to Jason, our winner tonight, for doing all the league organizing stuff. Appreciate it. It's good to get to run here on Monday nights. Better than some other leagues I had opportunities to run in, which have turned out to be kind of like bad. So at least I got a good place. At least I got a good, comfy place. Yeah, thanks everyone hanging out on Twitch. Nice to see y'all here. That's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out, and hopefully you'll manage to make it happen next week at Oxford.
That's the plan. Thanks for broadcasting as well, Aiden.
Yes, sir. And finally, taking home the checkered flag here tonight, the driver that we have seen come close to it and just fall short time and time again. He's finally made it happen here this evening. Mr. Jason Gardner, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling a bit shaky right now. Like just finally managed to win one.
Yeah,
especially after as much bad luck as I had.
Definitely been quite a season for you. Seems like it's been up, down, and all over the place. But coming into tonight's event, you were still third in the championship standings. And I don't have any math done yet, but this could potentially see you overtake Tyler in the standings with this win.
I'll probably if I do overtake him, it'll probably be for the time being. Tyler is definitely a much faster driver, so he'll probably end up taking me. But who knows? Hopefully, the last 2 races after this, hopefully I'll have just as much luck as I did today.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. And of course, in tonight's event, when you saw how dominant Brian was throughout the first half of this race, did you have any confidence that you were going to be able to take home this win tonight?
I'll be honest, not at all, because it was everything I could do just to try to stay at his rear bumper, like the first half of the race, because I'm not very confident when it comes to passing at this track, so I pretty much just kind of set myself up to, okay, second place will do. But after that pit cycle, I saw an opening happening going in turn 3 as he was coming out of the pits. I had a huge run, and I really had For a split second there, I was thinking maybe I shouldn't, but everything was screaming. This might be my only opportunity to even try to pass them.
Well, you managed to make it work one way or another, and y'all had one heck of a race all the way to the end of it, so I'd say things worked out one way or another. Of course, next week, Oxford Plains Speedway. How are you feeling heading into that tricky little, pretty much actual circle of a track?
I'm feeling optimistic. Hope it's it's definitely going to be a wild card in my book in terms of how I do.
Fair enough. Well, we can always at least hope for the best, and little bit of practice time between now and next Monday, and hopefully things will all work out. That said, for
Yeah.
now though, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Gardner. Who you want to thank for making everything happen here tonight?
I'd like to thank SM Racing for sponsoring the the series. I also like to thank you for broadcasting the race for over a year now at this point. And also, I'd like to thank everybody who showed up and everyone who's watching. Without y'all, none of this would be possible.
Good deal. Well, as always, thank you for coming out. Thank you for putting all these races on. And I look forward to seeing you next week at Oxford Plains.
If luck stays the same, hopefully I'll see you next week as well.
Good deal. That sounds like a plan to me. Alrighty, race fans, you have here your top 3 finishers here tonight. Jason Gardner, Brian Sabelski, and Garrett Streets rounding out the podium here tonight. Following back behind them, back in the 4th position, that is going to be the 62 of TJ Henson, followed by Nico Morelli, rounding out the top 5, with Corey Logan and Patrick Dixon rounding out the field here this evening. 100 laps here at the Thompson Speedway for round number 10 of the season. Next week, round 11 at the Oxford Plains Speedway. And then after that, we crown a champion at the Five Flags Speedway in round number 12. That said, though, that's about all we have here from the ASRC Oval Series. Big thank you from everyone here at the league and from the folks over at SM Racing Products for all the support y'all give to the league. And we look forward to seeing y'all next week at the Oxford Plains Speedway. Thank you all for coming out, and have a good evening, race fans.